In this video I would like to talk a little bit more about the decision making, and we are going to see sort of three different ways how we make decisions, or how do we consider that other people are making decisions. So at first we will talk about the rational model, and let me just change my brush. So the first will be the rational model, then we will have bounded rationality, and finally we will have an intuition. So let's see, you can see the rational model I have described over here, then we have our bounded rationality, and finally our intuition. And you will see that there is some sort of a logic why I have chosen it to go this way. So let's start with the rational model. So that we often think the best decision maker is rational, consistent while making value maximizing choices. This follows a rational decision-making model, which we have right over here. This is the rational decision-making model. However, as you will see, we are relying on assumptions, and that is the big problem. As you will see, let's start from the beginning. At first, this, our best decision maker, who is described right over here, defines the problem. So it is necessary, or we rely on the assumption that the decision maker is really able to define the problem perfectly. After the problem is defined, this best decision maker identifies the decision criteria. So that, let's say, after we have defined it, we tell ourselves, okay, our criteria are that the decision has to be made quickly, or it has to be made in 1 month, then it has to bring some values to our shareholders. Then thirdly, we allocate weights to the criteria. So that what is more important, that our project will be finished in 1 month, or that it will bring a lot of value to our shareholders. So we allocate these weights to the criteria. As fourth, we develop the alternatives. So what are the alternatives to our initial decision, or what are all of the alternatives that we can make? Fifth, we will evaluate these alternatives, and then we will select the best alternative. Now let's think about the assumptions. Well, if we define the problem, this is the first assumption that in reality is not possible to be done. And as you will see, the bounded rationality will try to solve this problem. In any case, we are unable to fully understand the problem, the consequences of the problem. Secondly, we are unable to identify really the decision-making criteria perfectly, just to some extent. Then again, allocating weights to the criteria. Now, here comes the biggest dispute, developing the alternatives. The rational model presumes that we really have all the information, so that we have all information. And that is, as you probably know, impossible. We cannot know everything that is, touching this problem we are trying to solve. This is just impossible, and that is one of the assumptions on which we are relying at. And so you will see that the bounded rationality is trying to solve it. So we have our alternatives, then we are evaluating the alternatives, and finally we select the best alternative. This is again a very strong presumption. So the best alternative, best alternative. Well, are you really able to say when you are making some decision that you have made a best choice? You don't know. Maybe you could have decided faster, maybe you could have decided a little bit differently, or maybe you could have made the decision later and it would be better. You never are able to really say if your decision was the best. So now we move from the rational model to the bounded rationality. And this says, because of limited information processing capacity, it is impossible to understand all the information. This is much more realistic. So that when there is some decision maker, well, he is not going to define the problem perfectly, but let's say just to certain extent, let's say to satisfying extent. Then when we are identifying the decision criteria, allocating weights, developing the alternatives, and let's say selecting the best alternative, all of this happens just to a satisfying extent, or to certain extent, or to a certain extent. And all of this is because we as a humans have this limited information processing capacity, so that we are unable to understand all the information and really be able to say, well, this is the best decision. So again, we will get to some satisfying decision. And still, we can get to some third understanding of decision making. So let me just draw some arrows, which will be an intuition. Intuition is a highly complex and highly developed form of reasoning. So it is a form of reasoning based on years of experience and learning. So that if we imagine that now we are being intuitive, if you imagine that, let's say we have been solving these kind of problems over the years and we have learned something. So that at first we will simply define the problem, define the problem, and because our intuition, which was developed during the years of experience while working with these problems, we will simply jump through all the phases and we will know directly what is the solution that is the best, or that is the satisfying one. So we will jump directly to the solution. So as you can see, these three understandings are quite different. The irrational model is some sort of a theory. So this is a theory, or the ideal state how we would like to solve the problems. Then we have the bounded rationality, where we are trying to solve the problems to the satisfying extent. And finally, we have an intuition, which is some form of reasoning which has been developed during the years of experience and learning.